So, we're going to talk about the 1947 partition of India, but not in the way you might see in a history book. We're not going to focus on the politics or the maps. Instead, we're going to dive into a deeply human story. It's a story about friendship, about a sudden, heartbreaking separation, and about a kind of hope that can somehow survive the most unimaginable changes.
This quote, it really gets to the heart of a world that was, well, about to vanish. Our story kicks off in a little village near Lahore, and it centers on two families, the Khannas, who were Hindu, and the Ahmeds, who were Muslim. For generations, their faith was just part of who they were, like the language they spoke or the food they ate. It was never, ever a wall between them.
And their lives, they were completely woven together. They weren't just neighbors, they shared everything. They celebrated each other's festivals, they ate at each other's tables, and the sound of their kids laughing was the same sound, echoing in the same courtyards. It was one single, vibrant community.
But by 1947, you could feel it. The air itself just felt different. The distant noise of politics started getting closer, louder, creeping into daily conversations. A kind of fear, this real uncertainty, began to take hold. And rumors, they started spreading like wildfire, poisoning the trust that had been there for generations.
And this is the moment where everything just shatters. A line was literally drawn on a map, often by people who had never even been to these villages. And then an announcement came over the radio. India and Pakistan were now two separate countries. For millions, this wasn't a celebration. It was a terrifying choice they were forced to make.
And it all boiled down to this, a directive that was so stark, so simple, it was brutal. The Khans, because they were Hindu, were told, you now belong in India, you have to go east. The Ahmeds, because they were Muslim, were told to stay put in what was now a new country, Pakistan. Just like that, overnight, your neighbor, your friend, is now a citizen of another nation.
So what do you do with that? I mean, really, think about it. How do you even begin to say goodbye to someone who was never, ever supposed to be on the other side? The concept didn't even exist a few weeks before. The emotional weight of that moment, it's just staggering to think about.
And what came next? Well, it wasn't just a journey for these two families. We're talking about millions of people. It set off one of the largest, fastest, and most chaotic mass migrations in all of human history, with everybody scrambling to get to what they were told was the right side of this new border.
In the middle of all this, the train became this incredibly powerful, double-edged symbol. On one hand, it was this vessel of hope, right? It was the chance to get your family to safety, to start over. But it was also a symbol of absolute tragedy, because so many of these journeys were filled with unbelievable violence, and many of those trains, they never made it.
And this is where the story gets so incredibly personal. Picture a chaotic, crowded train platform. There's the Khanna family, 4 generations of them, with their entire lives packed into a single small wooden suitcase. As they're getting on the train, Mr. Khanna looks across the platform and locks eyes with Mr. Ahmed. There's nothing to say, just a silent nod. But in that look, there's a promise. We will see each other again.
Now, to really grasp the scale of what was happening, just look at this number. Somewhere between 10 and 20 million people were torn from their homes. It's almost impossible to comprehend. Every single digit in that number represents a story of loss. A family like the Khannas, whose world was turned upside down forever.
But here's the thing that's so important to remember. Even in all of that chaos, all of that horror, the human spirit, it found a way. While the big political narrative was screaming about hate and division, on the ground in the middle of the storm, you could still find these small, powerful acts of kindness. And the source material gives us these incredible glimpses of grace. A Muslim man stopping to share his water with a Hindu woman he'd never met. A Muslim soldier who sees a terrified Sikh child and just sees a child, carrying them to safety. These are the moments where, as the source so beautifully puts it, humanity whispered back against the roar of hatred.
So eventually, the journeys end. The Khannas managed to make it to Amritsar in India. The Ahmeds stay in Lahore, now in Pakistan. That border between them is now a very real, very guarded thing. But the connection they had, the bond forged over generations, that wasn't something a line on a map could so easily break.
And so, to honor that bond, they started this quiet, beautiful ritual. Every single year, on the nights of their country's Independence Days, August 14th for Pakistan, August 15th for India, both families would step outside, look up at the exact same sky, and just for a moment, they'd be connected again through that shared memory. And this was the prayer they both whispered. It was simple and so incredibly powerful.
It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about borders. It was about people. It was a hope that the kind of peace and friendship they once knew could, one day, return to their people.
So, when you look back, the legacy of partition is just incredibly complex. On one level, yes, it created two nations, but its real, lasting legacy isn't on a map. It lives in the millions upon millions of individual stories. Stories of incredible loss, yes, but also of unbelievable courage and of human connections that simply refuse to be broken.
And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. We know partition created two countries, but what else did it create inside the millions of people who lived through it? What kinds of wounds? What kinds of strengths? What memories were forged in that fire of division? That's the question that still echoes even today.